What's going on, Headliner Nation? Kyle back with the Fantasy Headliners, because we need to shoot through my top 30 wide receiver rankings for Week 9 in the NFL season, and I've actually added just a little tiny segment to this rankings video as well, because at the end of every video, I see a lot of questions about some different players. So we're going to try and answer some of those questions before you even have to ask. So make sure you stay tuned till the end of the video and you'll see what I'm talking about. But let's go ahead and zip through these and get you ready to set your lineups for what's probably going to be an interesting Thursday night matchup with a lot of people missing. But as always, we're going to start at number 30 and make our way to the top. And at number 30 this week, Christian Kirk. Man, Christian Kirk really just, I don't want to say explodes, but kind of coming out of nowhere over the last couple of weeks. Now, a lot of people like Christian Kirk and know that he is a talented wide receiver, but I don't think anybody really expected him to kind of put up the numbers that he has over the last couple of weeks. With the way DeAndre Hopkins has been playing, I also think a lot of us were anticipating a little bit better run game than what we've seen, maybe some more passing attempts to the running backs than what we've seen as well. So Christian Kirk, a very nice surprise for those of you that probably didn't really draft him or even consider him over the first couple of weeks. After coming back from that injury, he's been really good. John Brown at number 29 at number 29 probably has a little bit more upside than number 29 right now. This is kind of his floor for me. That's where I'm going with this ranking. He could end up even higher than that in a matchup that definitely will allow it. Number 28, Darnell Mooney, the guy that was my Manscaped must-add this week. I talked about him in the start-sit video. I really like him this week. They are getting a pristine matchup that could allow him to absolutely explode this week. And it's something that we've kind of been keeping an eye on. He's a guy that's getting a decent amount of workload, a guy that is seeing a decent amount of targets, but he hasn't really been able to do anything consistently up to this point. Now, he gets the Tennessee Titans that allow over 46 fantasy points per game, and one of the things that I like about Darnell Mooney is what I brought up in my start and sit video, was that Allen Robinson commands the cornerback one, right? That's who's going to get Allen Robinson. Not only that, but Allen Robinson is so good. It's basically like what we've seen from Davante Adams, all right? Over the last couple of weeks, especially 2 weeks ago when he absolutely blew up, you can't just set one-on-one coverage and expect the cornerback to win man-to-man against an Allen Robinson. So you have to go back and forth. You have to stay inconsistent with your play calling in terms of what the other team is seeing. So you're getting a little bit of both. You're getting some man-to-man. You're getting some help over the top. You're getting some zone on Allen Robinson. So he's got a little bit of help. That is going to allow Darnell Mooney to not only get the one-on-one coverage that he needs, but it could allow him to look over that safety, get past that safety, because let's say Tennessee plays in a formation that only puts one safety on the field, or maybe brings a safety into the box. It's almost going to be expected at that point that that safety is going to be watching Allen Robinson. So if Mooney wins his one-on-one matchup, he's going to be open down the field. That could allow for a pretty big play for him and what could be a very good week. Number 27, Corey Davis. Corey Davis, he ended up missing some time with the COVID diagnosis. He's back on the field, though, kind of picking up where he started the season at. He's definitely a great number 2 complement to A.J. Brown. A little bit of a tougher matchup going up against Chicago. So Corey Davis's ceiling isn't what we've seen over the last couple of weeks, but the hope is with Corey Davis, he sees a decent amount of targets because maybe A.J. Brown is just not able to get open. And number 26, Antonio Brown. He's a start for me this week. We're going to roll with him. Tampa Bay going up against New Orleans. They allow almost 40 fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers. And a lot of times I would say, guy coming back in the middle of the year, new team, all these different things. I'd be like, ugh, I'm not really loving this matchup. But Antonio Brown is not your typical wide receiver. The dude is a beast. He's very, very good. He's uber talented. And he gets a quarterback that he's worked with a little bit already. And he's practiced with this offseason. And we know that Tom Brady has a connection with Antonio Brown, or he wouldn't have kind of stood up for him and tried to get him back on a team the way he has. So definitely could be a great opportunity with Antonio Brown. And we'll talk about we'll talk about Chris Godwin here in a couple of minutes. But again, Chris Godwin, if he plays this week, is he hampered? Is he not fully healthy? Who's going to be in the slot more times than not? There's enough weapons around there that Antonio Brown is not going to get a whole lot of double teams. He's going to get a lot of single coverage. Deontay Johnson at number 25, not nearly as high on him this week as I was last week. Going up against Dallas, you would think that would be all in on Deontay Johnson, but the problem is the guy has not been able to remain healthy. He's the new Will Fuller. He's Will Fuller 2.0. If he's healthy and he's on the field the entire game, the dude has a humongous ceiling every single week. But the problem is he keeps getting hurt. Even last week, again, he had to leave in the middle of the game because he suffered an injury. Is he going to be limited at all this week? The upside is there in a really good matchup, but I am not going to be running with Deontay Johnson as a safer bet of the three this week. At number 24, Marvin Jones. I'd like to go a lot higher with Marvin Jones. He's a guy that's been playing a lot better over the last couple of weeks, but we don't know for sure that Matthew Stafford is going to play. As of right now, Matthew Stafford, as long as he doesn't have a positive test, can play on Sunday. If he were to have a positive test, he can't play. So that is where we are currently standing. Right now at number 24 for me, I do like a little bit of upside. The ceiling for me is a little bit lower because we saw at the beginning of the season with no Kenny Golladay, it didn't just set Marvin Jones up as the number one wide receiver. Stafford still spread the ball around quite a bit. So I've got him a little bit lower. At number 23, Chase Claypool. He's got a little bit higher upside for me right now than Deontay Johnson does. Again, if I knew Deontay Johnson was fully healthy, out there on the field, ready to roll, Chase Claypool would probably be a sit for me this week, would probably be outside the top 30, and Deontay Johnson would be would be a lot higher for me. But because we don't really know about Deontay Johnson and his health at this point, and because the matchup is so good, we're definitely going to be looking at some upside for Chase Claypool here. Just be prepared. You can get anywhere from 5 points to 35 points with Chase Claypool right now. Number 22, Amari Cooper. This is a matchup again, going up against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh isn't the best at stopping wide receivers. Yeah, last week we were a little bit disappointed with that matchup, especially with Marquise Brown. They allow big plays. Pittsburgh allows big plays. Michael Gallup would be a start for me this week too if it weren't for the quarterback situation. We're talking about two different quarterbacks coming off the practice squad to throw the ball this week. So Amari Cooper is still going to be a start for me because the matchup is good for him, but someone's going to have to catch some footballs there for Dallas, right? They're going to be throwing the ball an awful lot. They're going to have to. For me, I'm always going to run with the wide receiver one there. It's still Amari Cooper. At number 21, Mike Williams. Definitely some big play upside this week for Mike Williams. We saw it last week. The dude, he just has the opportunity to go ham every single week. Love the upside this week. Right now, he's kind of a guy that's, a little bit of a roller coaster. I think we're going to see from him what we see from a lot of the guys that tend to be big play receivers. If they don't get one or two of those big plays, it's a pretty disappointing week. But because of the way he's been playing, we've got to roll with him this week as being a big play guy that could come down with a nice score or a nice play that allows him to get to those 10 points. At number 20, Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks, this is a great matchup for Houston this week. I'm definitely rolling with Brandon Cooks. Not only rolling with Brandon Cooks, but also rolling with, and you're going to see his name up here a couple of spots, Will Fuller. Brandon Cooks, again, been playing a lot better. They're coming off the bye, so hopefully they've got a really good game plan for Jacksonville. The one thing that concerns me about Brandon Cooks is Jacksonville's beat up right now. They don't have their starting quarterback, Gardner Minshew. They're going to be looking to a rookie. Does the game get put away a little bit early? If it does, we see a lot of David Johnson, and then Brandon Cooks and Will Fuller end up a lot lower. Fuller, for me, would probably be a little bit higher. He'd probably be maybe around a 12 or 11 if it weren't for the fact that they can end up running away with this game pretty early. Juju Smith-Schuster at number 19. Again, the reason, this is a good matchup, all right? Going up against Dallas, a really good matchup. But again, none of these guys are really trustworthy on a week-to-week basis, so none of them are a lot higher. However, I'm going to roll with Juju Smith-Schuster, as the wide receiver one this week. He's really bounced back over the last couple of weeks, looking a lot better. Hopefully, we're looking Juju's way this week quite often. And Juju, for me, isn't as reliant on the big play. At number 18, DJ Moore. DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, really close to each other here, 16 and 18. Obviously, last week in a really, really good matchup, disappointing, right? We were hoping that both of these guys would have a much better matchup, and it just didn't happen. This week, the matchup just isn't as good for them. They're going up against Kansas City. Kansas City allows 28 fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers, fourth lowest in the NFL, and that's why DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson are a little bit lower. That's why I'm looking at them as mid to low wide receiver twos. They're going to have to throw the ball quite a bit. To play with Kansas City, you got to throw the ball. You're not going to be able to run the ball the entire time. You're going to have to score some points. Christian McCaffrey is back. Hopefully that helps a little bit. Kansas City going to have to key on him a little bit, and that allows DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson a little bit more room to roam. However, again, the upside just isn't there for me this week. Michael Thomas at number 17. What are we going to get from Michael Thomas now that he's back? Hopefully. Again, he still continues to be limited. Is he going to be out? Right now, kind of how I've done in the past is I'm doing my rankings assuming that he will play, but might be a little bit limited. He might not be back to 100% right away. At number 17, going up against Tampa Bay allows under 35 fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers, one of the fewest in the league. They're right in that bottom third area of lowest amount allowed. So this is a little bit of a tougher matchup for Michael Thomas. Number 16, Robbie Anderson, already talked about him. Justin Jefferson at number 15, a guy last week that I told you that was a sit, kind of broke down why he was going to get Jair Alexander. It ended up happening. Now, is he going to get cornerback one coverage this week? Quite possible. However, it doesn't really matter because the Detroit Lions defense right now is really up and down. They do allow 38 fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers. They've had some good games. They've had some bad games. Last week's ball was spread around quite a bit. It kind of overshadows the fact that they still gave up quite a bit of points, quite a bit of yards to Phillip Rivers. Justin Jefferson, he's going to be back out there for me because him and his progress his rookie year is a little bit further along than what Okudah is. Or will he end up getting quarterback two coverage? Probably not. I think he's going to end up seeing Okudah, and I think Justin Jefferson will have a matchup that he can win. Will Fuller at 14, talked about him a little bit already when I talked about Brandon Cooks. Terry McLaurin at number 13, he's going to have Bradbury this week. The Giants do give up quite a bit of fantasy points per game, almost 40. However, Bradbury is a guy that can lock some people down. Terry McLaurin, though, this year is a guy that has been just fine, being able to win quite a few high cornerback one matchups, okay? Guys that maybe not necessarily have been as shut down as what you would see. Terry McLaurin has been able to get around them a little bit more often. Keep in mind, when they faced the Giants back in week 6, McLaurin had 12 targets, 7 receptions, 74 yards. So maybe the ceiling isn't really there this week, but if we can get into that area again, and we can find the end zone, Terry McLaurin is probably going to be right in this area. I'm thinking the same thing this week, right around double-digit targets, anywhere from 6 to 8 receptions, anywhere from that 70 to 90-yard mark, and then we hope he scores a touchdown along with that to put him right in this area, maybe a little bit higher. A.J. Brown at number 12. A.J. Brown, a guy that was very high last week. It just didn't end up working out for us last week. That's okay. That's going to happen from time to time with A.J. Brown. And I talked about that this offseason. He was one of my big names to avoid, a guy that I was kind of staying away from. However, he's got a touchdown last week, which kind of helped save us. He had that huge game against Pittsburgh the week before. It has been a little bit up and down, right? He had 39 yards and no touchdowns. 82 yards and a touchdown, then 58 yards and 2 touchdowns, 153 and a touchdown, 24 and a touchdown. So we're really banking on that touchdown. So that's why I've got him here in the top 12, because he's a guy that's scoring quite a bit. Going up against Chicago, it is a tough matchup. Okay, so we're being a little bit cautious with that. But he's got Chicago, Indianapolis, Baltimore over the next 3 weeks. So just keep an eye on A.J. Brown with that. It could be a tough 3 weeks for him. Could be a good buy low opportunity for you. At number 11, Mike Evans. If Chris Godwin is out, Mike Evans is in for me. And right now, I don't know if Chris Godwin is going to play. Again, we'll talk about that here in a moment. But Mike Evans for me, kind of the same thing last week. You know, when we talk about Mike Evans so far this year, it's kind of a touchdown or bust for us. He ended up getting that touchdown. 7 targets, 5 receptions, 55 yards, and a touchdown going up against the Giants. Obviously, didn't do too much the weeks before that, but he's been getting, there's only 2 games this year in which he has not had a touchdown. So he's putting together another pretty decent season, 7 touchdowns, right up there towards the top. Right now he's on pace to have his most touchdowns since 2016. So he's still scoring. If Chris Godwin is out, it helps that volume a little bit. If Chris Godwin ends up being in for some reason, we'll reevaluate Mike Evans. If Godwin is in, Evans, for me, probably becomes a sit. So make sure you're keeping an eye on that. Into our top 10, Tyler Lockett at number 10. Yes, they get the Buffalo Bills, who only give up 31.63 fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers. So it is a tougher matchup, right? It is a tougher matchup. I've got DK Metcalf at number 8. DK Metcalf is a guy that he can beat anybody, all right? He's a stud, all right? He is a physical freak of nature. There are not too many cornerbacks that I look at and say, yeah, 100%, you're not stopping him at all, okay? So he's still going to be at number 8 because I think the floor is still pretty safe for him. Tyler Lockett is at number 10 below him, though, because Tyler Lockett, again, is a guy that can win you a lot of weeks. He can lose you a lot of weeks. He's a roller coaster. We know that. We know the floor is very low, but the ceiling is very high. Keep in mind that Taron Johnson from the Buffalo Bills has 226 snaps in coverage this year, has been targeted 45 times, and this is all out of the slot. 226 snaps in the slot, 36 receptions he's allowed, the most in the league. On top of that is 392 yards allowed in the slot, also the most in the league. He has also allowed 150 yards after the catch in the slot, third most in the league. Tyler Lockett is a guy that will go into the slot more often than what DK Metcalf would. He's also a guy that could go into the slot, and then we see a guy like David Moore play on the outside instead. Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf are definitely an interesting pair this week. I like both of them even going up against Buffalo because, again, you have got a guy that is absolutely insane and Russell Wilson this year. We're letting Russ cook finally, and he is showing it. Tyler Lockett does have 169 snaps out of the slot this year, 12 most. He also has 23 receptions out of the slot this year. That is 11th most. So he is definitely a guy working out of the slot, 278 yards, the 11th most. He is going to go into the slot more often than not, and going up against Johnson there, it could definitely lead to a long day. His ceiling is much higher than DK Metcalf's, but it's a little bit lower in terms of the floor for me as well. Allen Robinson at number 9. I talked about it with Darnell Mooney. Allen Robinson going up against a really good matchup in Tennessee that allows the second most fantasy points per game. So we're rolling with Allen Robinson 100% this week. He's the top 10 option. Keenan Allen, man, the guy is just getting targets after target after target after target. Lord Almighty, Justin Herbert, I appreciate you more than you'll ever know for continuing to make Keenan Allen one of the most under-the-radar weapons in the National Football League. This year, there has only been 2 matchups where Keenan Allen doesn't have at least double-digit targets. Over the last couple of weeks, he has 19 receptions. The dude's a beast. The dude is a beast. We're rolling him out there. At number 6, Adam Thielen going up against Detroit. Again, a pretty decent matchup for him. Detroit, a team that can give up a lot of points at a time. Phillip Rivers last week really pushed their defense a little bit. Adam Thielen, Kirk Cousins, and Justin Jefferson, along with Dalvin Cook, will be able to do the same thing. At number 5, Stefon Diggs. Stefon Diggs definitely has a matchup this week that he could go ham in. Love me some Stefon Diggs going up against Seattle that allows the most fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers. I'd like John Brown to be a little bit higher than he is right now, but I do think Cole Beasley, who I'll bring up in a minute, is going to have a pretty decent game. So Stefon Diggs has the highest ceiling. The other two will kind of split outside of that. Number 4, Julio Jones going up against Denver. No Calvin Ridley this week. Calvin Ridley kind of a day-to-day. Hasn't officially been ruled out as of yet, as of this recording. So Julio Jones, high upside. Tyreek Hill, high upside every single week. DeAndre Hopkins, Davante Adams. You get into these top 4, it's basically right around the same 4 every single week. Davante Adams is absolutely on fire right now. DeAndre Hopkins coming out of the bye, feeling good. Tyreek Hill, one of the more consistent big play opportunity players at the position every single week. So those guys continue to be right up there. Now, a new part that I'm bringing to the show, my notable players, because a lot of time what I'll get questions about, hey, I don't see this guy in your top 30. So some notable players to mention right now. Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin not in the top 30 because there's no guarantee he's going to play. He returned to practice in a limited fashion, and because of that, they do not know if he can catch with his injured finger as of yet. Personally, I don't believe Chris Godwin plays this week. Jamison Crowder, another guy, every single week you guys keep asking me, where's Jamison Crowder? Why isn't he in the rankings? What's going on with that? Well, here's the thing. Also, Jamison Crowder has been banged up. Okay, he's a guy that's like, oh, he might play. Oh, he might play. All of a sudden, we get to Saturday night. Nope, Jamison Crowder's out again. If he plays, he's in my top 30 and he's a start. As of right now, we're just going to assume that he's going to be hurt again. Calvin Ridley, obviously dealing with the foot issue. Is he going to be able to play this week? We'll keep an eye on that. So those are 3 guys with injuries we're keeping an eye on. 3 guys that are starts for me, but just outside my top 30 include Tim Patrick, Jerry Jeudy, and Cole Beasley. Tim Patrick, Jerry Jeudy, got those guys a little bit lower, but still starts because Noah Fant is my Manscaped must start of the week, and they might be able to run the ball a little bit this week as well. So Tim Patrick, Jerry Jeudy just don't have some of the ceiling that these other guys have. Cole Beasley, kind of the same thing. I like the ceiling that I've seen from him over the last week or two. However, that's been with a banged up John Brown. If John Brown's 100%, that really limits the ceiling of Cole Beasley. However, the matchup is so good, and Josh Allen's been so reliant on him lately, I'm still going to list him as a start, especially in PPR leagues. Again, it just brings that ceiling down a little bit for me. So again, adding that, kind of adding this area to the wide receiver rankings videos, something I might start doing every week. So let me know, do you like me tossing in some of these notable players here at the end, just to keep you updated on what I'm seeing with them and why they may not be showing in my rankings. Do me a favor, Headliner Nation, hit the comments down below. Again, this notable player section, are you cool with that? Do you want me to keep doing it? Let me know. Also, if you appreciate the content, hit that like button. And as always, if you're new here to the Fantasy Headliners, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Become a part of Headliner Nation today, which is now over 111,000 strong. Thanks so much, everybody, for all of your support, all of your kind words over the last 24 hours as we've been dealing with these legal videos or these legal issues regarding the people that stole our music. We're still looking into that. New intro for right now. But we appreciate all the kind words from everyone over the last 24 hours regarding that. Headliner Nation, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.